At 4:07 a.m., under the buzzing fluorescent lights of an almost forgotten diner on the edge of Cleveland, a man who once owned half the skyline of 3 cities was seconds away from signing his life away. The pen trembled in his hand, not from fear alone, but from exhaustion so deep it felt permanent. Nathaniel Brooks, billionaire turned headline cautionary tale, stared at the bankruptcy papers like they were a death certificate, unaware that a single overlooked line and a waitress refilling his cold coffee were about to change everything. Before the story pulls you any deeper, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in the idea that even the smallest human moment can rewrite a destiny, please like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this survive because people still believe hearts matter more than numbers. Nathaniel had not slept in nearly 2 days. His suit, once custom fitted on Fifth Avenue, now hung loose on his shoulders, the fabric creased and dull. His hair, once perfectly groomed, had surrendered to stress, gray threading through the dark like surrender flags. Just 3 years earlier, his name had been etched on glass towers and charity wings, a symbol of relentless success. But success, he learned too late, had a fragile spine, a failed merger, a market crash, a trusted partner named Gregory who quietly shifted liabilities and vanished overseas, and the empire collapsed inward. Lawsuits came, assets froze, accounts emptied. The man who once negotiated billion-dollar deals now sat alone in a diner because it was the only place open, cheap, and anonymous enough to hide his shame. The booth creaked every time he shifted his weight. Outside, the parking lot glistened with rain, reflecting the tired neon sign that flickered like a heartbeat struggling to stay alive. Nathaniel was waiting for his lawyer, a man named Robert Haynes, who had called at 3:30 a.m. insisting this was the last chance. "Sign now," he said, and at least the bleeding would stop. Nathaniel didn't hear the words anymore. He only felt the finality of it. Bankruptcy meant losing not just money but legacy. His late father, a factory worker named Thomas Brooks, had taught him that building something meant carrying the weight of everyone who believed in you. At that booth, pen hovering, Nathaniel felt like he had failed every one of them. That was when Hannah Miller noticed him. Hannah was 26, working the night shift while finishing her accounting degree at a community college. She had learned to read people the way others read menus. Truck drivers carried loneliness. College kids carried arrogance. Insomniacs carried stories they didn't want to tell. Nathaniel carried despair so heavy it bent his posture. When she refilled his mug for the 3rd time, she noticed the papers spread across the table, dense with legal language highlighted and flagged. Most customers hid paperwork. This man clutched it like a lifeline and a noose at the same time. She walked back to the counter, but something tugged at her. Numbers were her language. Balance sheets made sense when people didn't. On her next pass, she glanced again, just long enough to notice a familiar structure, a line item near the bottom, a clause referencing deferred tax credits tied to a manufacturing subsidiary. Her heart skipped. She had studied cases like this. The credits didn't vanish in liquidation if the subsidiary was sold rather than dissolved. But the papers in front of Nathaniel treated them as worthless. Hannah hesitated. Customers didn't like being interrupted. Rich men especially didn't appreciate waitresses questioning their business. But this man didn't look rich anymore. He looked broken. And broken people sometimes needed courage from strangers. As she stood there, the hum of the diner faded into the background. Nathaniel looked up, irritation flashing for a moment before exhaustion reclaimed his face. Hannah didn't smile. She didn't lecture. She simply pointed at the page, careful and respectful, and indicated the line that didn't belong where it was. Her fingers shook slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of responsibility. She explained slowly that the tax credit classification might be wrong, that if the subsidiary was still active, it could be leveraged, not erased. She admitted she was a student, not a lawyer, but numbers didn't lie when you followed them honestly. Something shifted in Nathaniel's eyes. Not hope yet, suspicion first, then curiosity. He read the line again, then again. He felt something unfamiliar stir beneath the fatigue. He asked for clarification, and Hannah, grounding herself in what she knew, walked him through it without jargon, without ego, just truth. When Robert Haynes arrived, annoyed and rushed, he brushed her off at first. But Nathaniel insisted. For the first time in weeks, his voice carried authority. The lawyer reviewed the clause, then went silent. The diner clock ticked loudly as pages flipped faster, then slower. Robert's face drained of color. The classification was wrong. The subsidiary had been marked inactive due to a clerical delay, not an actual shutdown. Correcting it wouldn't save everything, but it would prevent total collapse. It meant restructuring, not annihilation. It meant time. At 4:42 a.m., Nathaniel put the pen down. The sun rose weakly over Cleveland that morning, pale and unsure, much like Nathaniel himself. He didn't feel victorious. He felt humbled. Hannah returned to wiping counters, unsure if she had done anything meaningful or just delayed the inevitable. Nathaniel paid his bill and left a tip that nearly made her cry, but money wasn't what followed her home. What followed her was the knowledge that paying attention had mattered. The months that followed were brutal but different. Nathaniel sold properties, downsized offices, and faced employees he once avoided. But he rebuilt. Honestly. The subsidiary survived and grew. Lawsuits settled. And through it all, he couldn't forget the diner at 4 a.m., or the woman who cared enough to look twice. He funded a scholarship program for night shift workers pursuing education, naming it after his father, because dignity deserved recognition no matter the hour. Nearly a year later, Hannah graduated debt-free. She received a letter offering her a job, not as charity, but as acknowledgement. She accepted, not because it was glamorous, but because it felt earned. Nathaniel didn't become the man he used to be. He became a better one, quieter, more present. A man who knew that empires weren't saved by power, but by people willing to notice a small line others ignored. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you that compassion still has a place in a tired world, please like this video, share it, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories of hope reach hearts that desperately need them. And before this story ends, take a moment to comment below. Write one word that this story made you feel. Just one. It matters more than you think. Because sometimes at 4 a.m. in a nearly empty diner, the difference between losing everything and starting again is not wealth, or lawyers, or luck. It is a tired waitress, a careful glance, and the courage to care when it would be easier not to.